Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 41. In today's episode, we're going to look at PPMs in an air sample then. So many times when we get a air sample back, we want to really understand the details of the air sample and not just say, oh, so here it is, but how do I really put that into usable terms as opposed to I have a sample and maybe I can't communicate that to the workforce, maybe of course because everything is in ppms, but I get my sample back in milligrams per meter cube. So I have to really look at how I'm going to convert the stuff over. So this has a little bit of math to it. As a flawed human, I like to automate my things. And this kind of goes along with when we think about episode 39 and episode 40. This is on episode 41. We're going to get these ppms back. How do we express that sample? So one of the things that we want to understand, of course, obviously, is the conversion factor. We want to make sure that we're looking at the OSHA permissible exposure limit. There's not a permissible exposure limit for everything out there, but in this case, we want to sit down and say we're looking at it from a standpoint of either human health or just because as an operating permit, we then have to calculate how much we are emitting and then give an average. Either it's on a daily, monthly, whatever, when you kind of think about a operating permit that's out there. So in today's example, we're going to look at sulfur dioxide only for this one. So the PEL for this is going to be 5 ppms, and we have to have the molecular weight of the chemical that's going to be sampled. And in this case, because we're only trying to look for sulfur dioxide, it's 64.066 for the molecular weight. Let's go ahead and do some math here. So let's look at a common example that comes back to us then. So lab analysis of SO2 from a 1.5 cubic meter air sample then at standard temperature and pressure shows 756 micrograms of SO2. How many ppms are in the air sample? So we have to figure out our conversion. Is it micrograms? Is it milligrams? And then, of course, we then have to say, how do we convert that over to answer the question of ppms, to know, are we over or under exposing people at the workplace in there? So let's look at our formula then. So it's going to be the ppms is going to be equal to, in this case, micrograms per meter cubed of that molecule times 0.02445 divided by the molecular weight of the molecule. So let's go ahead and do just a little bit of math on this example. We input our formula here. So we know that we're going to have a sample result of 756 micrograms per, and then it's 1.5 meters cubed because we're trying to figure out for this area, we have exposure and then we have area. So then we want to look at it as a holistic view times 0.02445 divided by the weight of SO2, 64.066 grams per molecule. So if we do some math, we then end up with 12.3228 divided by that molecular weight, 64.066, which will be equal to 0.1923459. And of course, that's not a number that we can really communicate to the workforce or to the state. So we want to look at significant digits. And in this case, we're going to choose 0.192. So that's going to be the ppm of that sample. You can't say that's going to be like 100% what you would find at that sample in 100% every single spot at your facility. But what you can say is this point, this time, this is exactly what this sample came back with. So it's really hard to always say, and I will never deviate from that level. I will never go up. I will never go down. You can only literally say, given the sample that I took, this date, this time, this amount of air, this is exactly what we have here. And that's it. episode number 41. And in this one, we sat down and did a little more math to follow up on episode 39 and episode 40. Like all things, we want to make sure that our people in the workplace are not being overexposed to things out there. We also want to go back and minimize that exposure as much as we possibly can. We do have that moral and ethical portion also. People are our most valuable asset that we have out there. And in certain cases, of course, it has nothing to do with the people because we have enough data to then say, well, we know that we are not overexposing people. But that doesn't mean that you're not calculating something for the state on your annual operating permit and saying, I know that for this sample, this date, because you can't say that this means that we're never going to deviate. But here's some samples to show my data, and then this is how I did my emissions for the year, and in this case, only for sulfur dioxide. We can't really get into anything else because that's exactly what we were sampling for only. So, my name is Dr. David Ayers. Thank you for joining me today, and have a safe day.